Sandy Scott. I am the Attendance Dropout Prevention Coordinator for Liberty Hill ISD in Liberty Hill, Texas.
So what brought you into the work of attendance?
About 15 years ago, was working on my teaching certification in Texas shortly after I moved here with my children, and applied for an attendance dropout prevention specialist job in Leander ISD. I ended up getting the job, and I've been in education in Texas now for 15 years. 11 of that has been directly with attendance.
And so what's brought you to Liberty Hill?
Moved over to Belton ISD as an attendance dropout prevention specialist for them. Prior to that, I had been working in Peems, and about a year after I went there, the principal of Liberty Hill High School reached out to me and said they were looking at starting a program here and wondered if I might be interested. About, I'd say 6 months later, they posted the position and I applied and got it.
And what was the attendance landscape like whenever you started?
When I started, Liberty Hill ISD had dropped significantly, approximately 3 attendance points. They had never really had poor attendance, but as we know, for most schools throughout the entire nation, after COVID, attendance became an issue. And so they really had no program in place. There had been an attempt to send letters through our student information system the year before. It did not go very well. They'd also started working on the 90% rule, which has to do with the amount of time a student is in class the year before. So really, when I came in, there was no program in existence, no systems and no program. So we started from scratch and worked our way up and created where we're at right now. It's always a challenge to be, there's a lot of times in education right now, we're understaffed. So I am the only person in my specific position and the only person who is really heading up attendance. And so that's probably one of the big challenges, is one person and covering a small to mid-sized district that is increasing by about 1,000 students a year.
What steps did you take to, kind of address that?
First of all, we had to put in a very clear system to address attendance, and we started out with truancy the first year. We also started out with ensuring that we had consistent information available to our parents through an attendance website for the district that was the same on every campus, because I found that there was either nothing in regards to attendance on some campus websites, or there was varying information that didn't match up. And then we also started working on our student handbook in regards to attendance, to setting very clear policies and procedures. And then once the steps were put in place of how we were going to address it, we have a 4-tiered process that we go through, and that process was taught to all of the campus stakeholders, in particular the attendance clerks, registrars, and the assistant principals. We would have a clear idea of how we were addressing it and what the process would look like in regards to making sure we were complying with state law and procedures, as well as that our district policies and procedures aligned with the state and with our process as well.
What absenteeism issue do you primarily focus on, and in what way?
We try to, at this point, when we started out, we primarily focused on the unexcused absences. And in doing that, we would try to identify them prior to them becoming truant. In the state of Texas, if you have 10 full or part days of unexcused absences in a 6-month period, you're considered truant. First of all, we started informing parents at 3 unexcused absences, and then we started having the campus intervene at 7. And it was a matter of educating parents at that stage and trying to identify barriers. And then if that did not resolve it and they did move on to the truant level, we then addressed it in an in-person meeting, which I then facilitated on the campus with the parent, and depending on the student's age, with the student in the meeting as well, and devised an attendance behavior improvement plan. And in that meeting, in the very beginning, our goal has really been clarifying expectations for attendance and then clarifying what potential consequences could be. And that was year one's goal throughout, is trying to make sure that we were addressing attendance on a consistent basis, and we were focusing on unexcused absences at that point.
And what improvements are you the most proud of, and what impact has it made on your students?
I can say probably the improvements that I'm most proud of is that we're reaching more students every year, and that we're seeing a change in that students understand the expectation of being in school. I have students who will come and talk to their assistant principals prior to having attendance issues and ask them questions and ask them about, hey, if I miss too much, am I going to end up going hours? Am I close to truancy? So there's been an adoption of the expectations that attending school is valuable. And then I would say the number of students we've seen who had lost hope, and we would working with them and getting them to the point where they took ownership of coming to school and started feeling the feelings of accomplishment and how that can completely change a student. And so I think that's probably our greatest efforts, would be that the students themselves are starting to adopt a culture of good attendance.
You've been working with Rawi for years, so how has this partnership supported your efforts?
A clear example of how it supports, because the first year that I came, one of the first things I recognized is it's not just about having the right person in place to help spearhead the process. You also need a partnership with an application that's going to help you with your workflow and also help you to ensure that your letters are going out on a regular basis, that communication to the parents. So in the first year, I only got one campus, Liberty Hill High School, on board using Rawi. And in that first year, Liberty Hill High School improved by 2 percentage points, and it essentially carried most of the district in our improvement that first year in attendance. It made it possible in the second year when we rolled it out and offered it to every campus. They all were on board. And it's important because outside of that, you have to create your own workflow systems. It's burdensome to your administrators who are very busy and don't have the time always to run the reports and look up the students and put information into an outside spreadsheet. And the process was very burdensome. And so when we rolled out across the district over and over again from the attendance clerks who were sending the letters, that's all I have to do. That's it. I'm done. To the assistant principals go, this is so clear. I have a list every week of knowing which students I need to address. Without Rawi, it was very clear. The campus that had it improved 2%. The rest of the district, most of the campuses maintained or maybe improved by 0.5 to maybe 1%, and some of the campuses didn't improve at all or actually went down in attendance. It was a very important part, and I appreciate the partnership that I have with Rawi that made that possible. Thank you for taking the time to listen, and I hope it affects people positively.